Hey, thanks for joining me. So it's sad to say, I just read, as many of us have seen already, that comic artist Sam Kieth has passed away. And I just thought that I'd throw together a quick little video just kind of talking about my thoughts on the guy for just a minute. Sam Kieth, he was born January 11th of 1963, and according to the information that I see here, he died on March 15th. And the date today, as of this recording, when I heard the news, is the 21st. So apparently he passed away several days before they announced it publicly. I'm just guessing, which I kind of get. Like, the last thing you care about when a significant other passes away and they've got kind of a public persona is necessarily informing the public right away. You're kind of only concerned about your family and what you're going through at the moment. But and the sad thing is that it says here, from the information I see, it says that he died from complications of Lewy body dementia. And that is not anything I'd ever heard of before some years ago. It's my understanding that Robin Williams was suffering of that, and that contributed in big part to his passing. And that it really sucks. I mean, it sucks anytime anybody passes for any reason. But to kind of have to suffer something like this, because, he was, 63 years old. As an artist, to my mind, he's got tons of art that he could have still made for years and years to come. I've done a lot of live streams on my channel, and would discuss with people kind of joining in with the live streams. We're chatting back and forth. Often different artists come up. And I'd often wondered whatever happened to Sam Kieth. He was so prolific and popular in the comics industry for years. And then he just kind of just seemed like he was gone one day. And I couldn't really seem to get any kind of specific kind of like validation as to what he's chosen to do or why he kind of disappeared. But honestly, I kind of thought, like, well, you know what? Maybe with the money he made doing comics, and then he had an animated show, maybe he was wealthy enough that he could just step away and not have to do anything that he didn't want to do. I just always kind of like to think that if he stepped away from the kind of public light in the comic world, that maybe he was just living his best life and enjoying the later years in his existence. And you know what? Good. That'd be awesome. That's to his credit, if anybody can be lucky enough to do that. But, and who knows, maybe that is the case, but obviously he was suffering from that Lewy body dementia. And, it sounds like that probably is something that made the end of his life not the kind of way that anybody would like it to go. And it just sucks. As far as Sam Kieth, he got some of his earliest work was around about 1984, doing inks over Matt Wagner on Mage. And he had a lot of stuff that he was doing. He did some work for the Sandman and stuff for Dark Horse Comics. And then, of course, I think most of us kind of felt like he came to his prominence. And specifically, to my mind, the first time I ever heard of him or seen his artwork was the Marvel Comics Presents run with Wolverine and that character Cyber. Just the crazy proportions and details and just the insanity of his artwork just made anybody who was a comic fan just take notice. It just jumped out at you. You just look at it and go, wow, it was so different from the popular guys of the day. And I would, the popular guys, it always comes back to my mind, the most popular guys of the time were the guys at Marvel that then went off and formed Image Comics, which Sam Kieth kind of was the second wave group to follow them later. But, McFarlane is different from Jim Lee, of course, but they all kind of had a more, for lack of a better term, traditional superhero art style. McFarlane, Larson, Liefeld, Lee, all those guys that we know. But Sam Kieth had this crazy rendering style that was like hyper cartoony, super exaggerated, but at the same time, he could combine that cartoony form of figure drawing that he would do with like some of the most realistic shadowing and rendering for like it demonstrated a complete understanding of light and form and the way that how to light a figure and make it look three-dimensional and round. And you just had this incredible detailed mishmash of realism and hyper cartoony. It's so weird. And it kind of defies description in some ways. I don't have the vocabulary to describe it in the best way. I'm sure there's people out there that can explain it better than me. But I think anybody who's seen his work can understand it. And Sam Kieth's art was never my favorite. He was never my favorite guy. But it stood out. And there's stuff that he's done that he may not be my favorite artist, but there's work that he's done that you just look at it and you go, holy crap, look at how good that is. Look at the detail. How much time did he take doing that to render that body hair on Wolverine's back and his arms and, stuff like that, or that crazy cybernetic technological metal rendering detail that he would do on some characters. My favorite stuff of his is whenever I can see the original black and white artwork and just get in there and see the hyper detail that he would actually put into his work. Kind of like, I like that Marvel Comics presents Wolverine's story that Peter David wrote with him. And it looks great in the comics, but whenever you get to see that work in the black and white, you really get to realize how much of the detail was kind of lost to that kind of old school printing method on crappy newsprint paper. And I'm a guy who advocates for comics that were printed on newsprint years ago. There's something that's so beautiful about it that's just unique and special. But there are times when the beauty and the finesse and the line work is lost. And so much of Sam Kieth's finer, beautiful artwork was lost. And when you get to see the original work and just zoom in on it, you're like, holy crap, the man's ability, his skills, unparalleled in so many ways. I just wish somebody would put together an artist edition of that Marvel Comics Presents stuff. There is a Sam Kieth Max artist edition, which I want to get my hands on, but from what I understand, it was a low print run, and they are hard to find. And if you can find it, they are extremely cost prohibitive, so expensive. And now this will make it even more so, which is good. I like the idea that an artist's work has value and retains value, even if, they pass. But I would really, really like to get my hands on that artist edition of the Max, but I would really like to see one of his Marvel work. There's stuff that he did with the Incredible Hulk as well, but that Wolverine stuff would just be fantastic to get to see in full 11 by 17, full blown up, high resolution scan artist edition. His work is just like, he's one of those guys, like I said, he's not my favorite artist, but I want an artist edition of his work so I can sit there and look over it in detail and just absorb it and learn from it and just marvel at the beauty of the line that he put down. And he's one of those guys, like everyone from that era, like, again, he kind of come up in the 80s and kind of rose to his prominence in the 90s. And this is how everyone worked for the most part, but old school pencil on paper and with ink, nibs, brush, white paint of some type, just physical media on paper and not digital. And I've said this before, digital artwork is fine. I understand the how come it's so popular and why people use it and the options that it affords you. But as a enthusiastic amateur artist myself, I kind of refuse to pick up digital. I don't want to do it. I could see myself kind of fiddling around with like rough sketching and the kind of the breakdown thumbnails of pages beforehand. But everything that I do as far as final work needs to be pencil and ink on paper. And that's what Sam Kieth had. And just the amount of like ink mileage he puts into his artwork. I don't know how else to put it. Just the hyper tiny rendering on those details of that incredible work that he does, or unfortunately used to do. He's just a fantastic artist. I think anybody who reads comics and has read comics since the 90s, everyone knows about him. And even if you don't like his work, you can't, I just have to imagine anybody who's being honest can look at it and respect it, even if you don't like it. You can see the amount of work that he puts into it, how much time and effort and the passion. It just shows this is a guy who is a creative genius in my mind. And sometimes an artist, you can, there's, we've all heard the term, a jobber, right? A guy who just kind of shows up to do a job and does a kind of an okay gig. and is passable and is fine. But his work to me always looked like a guy that was passionate about doing the most dramatic, interesting, detailed, beautiful work that he could on a page by page basis. And he never faltered and he never wavered. And it's something to be aspiring to. If you're an artist and you're going to create, if you're not passionate about it, you're doing something wrong. You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong space. Find something to be passionate about somewhere. I understand if you're just kind of doing a gig because you need to make money, that's totally understandable. We've all been there on some degree. Like, we all got to get up and do a job, but we always should be looking for that thing that we do besides the regular job part of our lives, to find something that we're passionate about, that we just love to do, and it just shows. It just emanates out of us. It just oozes out of our pores, whether it's art on paper or on a canvas, or you're sculpting, or you're writing, or you're making music, or you're singing, or you're dancing, or anything. Just create and be passionate about it and love it. And that's what I see when I look at Sam Kieth's work, is a guy that was passionate and loved his work. And we're all the better for it, for the amazing work that he gave us. And it's, we get to look at all his work for the rest of our lives. It's always going to be there. What we do in life echoes through eternity, right? And as an artist, that's one of those great things, because you can leave behind a legacy that people can always look at and know that this person did this work. And the good stuff just always will be there, and it'll never go away. So, what more can I say? Condolences to his family and to anyone who knew him. It sucks that he passed, but he left behind amazing work that people will enjoy forever. And, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's an amazing thing. We should all be so lucky. So anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.